So I have the choice of being able to read my slide notes or see you, and it's always a tough choice. So, thank you for your patience in letting us sort out the technical difficulties. I am really grateful to be standing here at DrupalCon in such a beautiful city and with this audience, and especially with one of my favorite people in the world. And full disclosure, Palantir is a client, but there's a long story before we ever had that
Years.
sort of relationship. Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
I think Jam was the first Drupal person who ever came to my house.
Wow, that is okay.
Yeah.
I'm humbled at this point. So I am the co-founder and one of the two partners at Open Strategy Partners. The other partner and co-founder is Tracy right here. It's about 15 of us around the world. We do marketing for tech companies, specializing in B2B and open source. And I'll tell you about that in a second.
Hi,
Tiffany.
I'm Tiffany Ferris. I'm the CEO at Palantir. We've been doing Drupal since 2006, and we tend to work on larger kind of public sector clients. But I know a little bit about what it is to be in a pitch and how to think about it. So between us, we should have you covered.
Yeah. So, Open Strategy Partners, we say your tech is complex, your message shouldn't be. And then we say, I'm going to have to sit down to read it almost. Open Strategy Partners helps B2B open source tech companies align marketing strategy content with your vision, technical truth to generate leads, win customers, and gain advocates, which sounds great, right? That's actually our full positioning statement. And I think the thing that I'd like to highlight about how we work, including how we pitch, is we're structured, and we think in structures because that's the only way we can test things and repeat them and improve them over time. So those first words define who we would like to help. The second, align marketing strategy and content. That is what we do. We are a content marketing, a strategic content marketing agency for technical companies. We have a USP that we have methodologies that align the complex technology that you use and build with your business strategy. And then why should you care? Well, you might want customers, leads, and advocates, right? So in the end, as a marketer, we boil that down to...
But also define USP.
Oh, I apologize. Yes. USP is a unique selling point. We even have our editing codes to explain jargon. So yeah, so in the end, we're tech marketers for tech companies. That's what we do, and that's a small example of us finally doing that work for ourselves after some leadership get-togethers recently. So what's up next?
Just to tell them what we're going to talk about.
Right. So we would like to introduce you to two concepts that we use at OSP. One is called the value case, and one is called the value map, and they are intertwined and interrelated, and they're a way to think about how to connect what is that you do with the value that you deliver and to whom and how. Tiffany is going to talk about how to think of B2B value in the perspective of selling and making connections with people, which is super cool. Then we're going to give you an example of this, a couple of examples. We'll talk then specifically about pitching, which in today's version of pitching is or you hope you're going to talk with someone, how you prepare and how you then have as successful as possible a call with them, leading up to hopefully more calls and work. Yep. And there will be the opportunity for questions and answers.
Right. So at the end, I just want to prep you for the Q&A, give you a little time to think about it. So the questions we'll be talking about are, what are your pitch experiences? What's worked, what hasn't, any questions you might have about an upcoming pitch. And so, you can go to this URL, or you could use the QR code if you'd like to, but you can actually just type them in there, and then we'll circle back to it on the end.
I forgot to put the access information on there.
So if you want to do that, there'll be a user HTXS that pops up. So it's just demo, DEMO, and the password is Palantir,
All lowercase.
Palantir, all lowercase.
Demo Palantir. And if you're trying to get in the middle of the session and you need us to repeat that, just please ask.
Yep.
In the moment. Right. Demo Palantir. That is a fun place where we can gather your thoughts and questions. Has everyone got it? Enough? No? Demo Palantir.
Palantir is the pass.
And we can show this again later. Oh, I'm sorry, Tiff. I left that out.
So good.
So what do we have now? Ah, yes. So the value case is a way that we came up with to structure our thinking in any professional communication situation that we are in as marketers. I believe that we can boil down our communication into 3 elements, and it doesn't have to be placative and explicit every time, but you really need to think about if you're explaining what you do to someone else, if you're writing a case study, if you're writing a landing page, if you're writing a white paper, whatever it is, you need to paint a vision for your prospective client or user of how great things would be if they used your technology, your solution, your agency, your product, your open source project. And when we're pitching, right, we might turn this around by saying, hey, how's your business going? How are things? What's your sort of ideal picture of where you're going right now and what's in your way? And knowing the challenges that a customer faces and thinking about the challenges ahead of time can help. It's not just that we understand their business, but it's a really, really good way to show someone that you see them and you understand them. It's very empathetic to say, I know that you, as a whatever your job is, need more efficiency, right? Or need more time back, or whatever it is, because you're using an outdated system, because you're whatever it is, right? So understand what they're facing, and then we have the opportunity to present a solution. So as technologists, your solutions are generally involved in, we use Drupal and it has this and this and this, and therefore we could help you alleviate these challenges and get you to this ideal state. So we use this formula a lot, and you can present it in different orders in different contexts, but we work with this all the time, every day, in every single thing we do, I think.
Well, I think it's also important when you come back and you start to think about what is value. So Bain, a few years ago, actually did a survey around what kinds of value get created in these business-to-business relationships. And they actually created this hierarchy, which I find really useful. So what you do is you kind of break it down, and it goes from, at the bottom, you have very objective measures. So those are your table stakes. And one of the biggest mistakes you'll see made in a pitch is when you focus your entire argument on table stakes, right? You are in the conversation. You are invited into that room. You are invited into that meeting because you already assume that you're going to meet their specifications, or that it's an acceptable price that they could pay, or that it's compliant, right? So if you spend all your time with them talking about table stakes, you've lost, right? Those are the objective measures. As you move up the pyramid, you're going to get to things that are inspirational. This is the open source, like, oh, don't you want to be part of something? Or I love how Tim Doyle always says that public dollars should go to public software, right? That's the inspirational case that you're going to make. And ultimately, a successful pitch is going to include whatever elements of value really speak to the challenges that they have, right? So as you're breaking down and listening to their challenges, you're going to start to create a map here around is it the ease of doing business? I happen to find that if I don't really know what their challenges are, I'm going to focus on how the solution that we're proposing to them creates ease of business value for them in the solution. So that's the ultimate benefit. If you don't know, go in the middle. I think, we, as I said before, we tend to work in public sector. So the individual value is not generally one that I emphasize, right? It's going to be in that kind of functional value, operational value, and then it'll go up into like productivity or relationships. And Drupal's very good. Drupal's very solid in that space. So that's where you're going to want to focus. And you match up and pick and choose your arguments in based on what you've heard from them or what the individual unique selling points are of your particular solution. So Palantir does work with OSP, and I think it's been one of the best decisions because I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, but it's often that we find ourselves as the shoemaker with no shoes. For the longest time, we had a website that wasn't all the cool things that we do for others. And what's really valuable about it is, as a small firm, we don't have we would basically have budget for like a person. And I've gotten to the point where both on my accounting team and, for my accounting needs as well as for my communication needs, I can fund basically one FTE, but I don't want any departments of one. So we tend to go to outsource vendors when we find ourselves in that situation because you need someone with both to bring the strategic value around the discipline that they do, but also the execution muscle. And it's really hard to hire that one unicorn who's willing to spend maybe 5% of their time being incredibly brilliantly strategic and 95% of their time in execution. So breaking down, all right, Jam talked a little bit about the value case example. So this is the value case example for Edit Together. Edit Together is the collaborative editor real-time collaboration that we built for Drupal, and it came out
that you're putting your questions and observations into right now.
Right. So if you got the QR code, you're actually using Edit Together to edit the same node. Isn't that exciting? So what we found were that a lot of our clients were running open source stacks, and they have a lot of their workflows were disrupted. They would start in Google Docs or they would start in Microsoft 360. They would edit things together, and eventually it would flow its way into Drupal. And then those same people who had edited it before would end up needing to move from kind of a concurrent editing model into a more serialized model, and it really gummed up the works. Or they would take it right back out into Google Docs, and then you have to go back and have the inefficiency of taking out the formatting again and all of those pieces. So it really became quite inefficient for them. But they also have needs around data and data sovereignty and security. And if they had things like Google or 360, but they were working with other vendors, there was a lot of conflict in that. Can we use this version? Can we not use this version? So what we wanted to the value case there is to say, look, teams that are already using Drupal need to be able to collaborate and stay in Drupal. So that's really the argument that we made for Edit Together. So the solution is, yes, this is a completely free open source tool for Drupal. It enables all the things you expect of real-time editing, and it needs to be configurable within those security settings. What you'll notice in the framing here, right, is that we're setting up, as I said before, those ease of business arguments, right? Productivity, it saves you time and hassle. It has access, it's configurable like Drupal. And then in terms of the relationship, you are emphasizing, or I'm emphasizing, cultural fit and the stability that you already expect from Drupal. So that's how it starts to come together as a solution using that value map framework. And then you have the benefits. So the benefits are reinforcing some of the highly subjective, right? You're in the democratizing collaboration and open source, like that's the inspirational argument. So presumably you're talking with someone who has already bought into that, because you're not, in this case, we're not selling Drupal. We're, essentially encouraging them to use another open source tool to extend it for them. And then you go all the way down to the highly objective, right? It's reinforcing you have compliance concerns, whether it's GDPR or other data sovereignty requirements. But then we're hammering home that functional performance about ease of doing business. So we expect most of our target to be government focused. The personal value angle isn't something you see anywhere on here. But if you are working, especially in a founder-led startup, you're going to go inspirational. If you are working with someone who is, an up-and-comer in an organization or a larger, more hierarchical organization, do not overlook the individual value. The way I like to talk about that is, how is working with you going to get me a raise? So don't forget about that one, just not in government settings, because it doesn't work like that. So those different arguments are only part of our overall value map. So depending on what kind of, either if you're doing your entire service line or your whole company, you might have a value map that has like 30 and 800 different features. So that, I think Edit Together has a ton of value, or I think Palantir has a ton of value. I'm never going to go into a conversation and sandbag, like just completely throw everything, every argument I ever had at them. I'm going to pick and choose the ones that I think are the most effective in that particular pitch based on what I've heard, what I've seen, and then I adapt while they're talking to me in the middle of that pitch.
Right, and we were talking before, for your company, you have a sort of internalized value map, and you know what you want to say in any given circumstance. You've had a ongoing long-term challenge that even team members who've been with you for a decade can't pull that out.
Right.
Right. So this also, we say de-silo, but we could easily say democratize, or it pulls the information out of the founder's head and puts it into a format that everybody has access to, right? So they can tell the same stories, they can make marketing materials or sales battle cards or what have you based on the same things. And these work for, we had a fan of the company make a value map about himself when he was looking for a new job. We've done these for partner programs, we've done these for agencies, we've done these for entire CMSs. Where there's enormous complexity, 800 lines, multiple levels of grouping and whatever. But this, it really comes together when it does a thing, and that thing delivers value, and that value, then we wrap it into a value case based on reality, based on experience, based on stakeholders, clients, etc., and move it all the way up into a positioning that is fact-based and works really, really well for technical products when there's a lot to think about.
Right. Having a tool like a value map, one, encourages that thinking to be accessible to anybody in your organization, for you all to be essentially marching in the same direction, which is always a good thing. But it also takes the pressure off and allows you to be in the moment with whoever you're talking to, whoever you're pitching to, because I'm not in the moment trying to solve what's the value. All I'm trying to do is to listen to what they need in that moment. And then based on what I hear, then I can pull the value out that I already know. So I'm completely in the moment with that person, and all of this pre-work is what allows me to do that.
So the next, and for us, we think the next most important tool is another bit of structural thinking that we've codified at OSP. Sometimes we call it the silent pitch. Sometimes we say your homepage as pitch deck. So my co-founder, Tracy, had the truly brilliant and simple idea a couple of years ago when we were preparing for the next client pitch to say, we're not making any more decks. And I was like, how can I do that without a deck? And she said, our homepage is our deck. And over the last few years, we've learned, and it makes perfect sense as soon as you thought of it. If your homepage pitches you properly, right, then it's always there. It's selling for you 24 hours a day. If someone's interested in working with you, they can come and learn what they need to, self-qualify. They're moving themselves down the funnel. They're more ready, more informed for a conversation when they get there. And as you'll see in a second, when we pitch from our homepage, everything is linked to more depth and more information, so someone can come back to your homepage at any point and learn more about you. And anyone from your team or any of your advocates can pitch for you. It's pretty fun. So I want to take you quickly through this structure. This is the next bit of preparing for great pitching, right? This is the current state of the OSP homepage, and therefore a perfect example of the art. Including the intentional spelling mistakes, because they're there, so you'll email me and that starts a conversation.
Make your weakness your strength.
So look, you see a value case in there, benefit, solution, challenges. And that is an order that we use a lot when we don't know who we're talking with and we're presenting a vision to a given persona or whatever. So benefits, solution, challenges, social proof we haven't talked about yet. If you're presenting something new and different, nobody wants to be your first customer. Nobody wants to be the guinea pig. So if you can show that other agency owners, other product companies, other open source projects might be happy with you, or whatever your vertical is. Obviously, I'm talking from my perspective, right? That'll help get the conversation started. You have reference, you've done this before, it's not a new thing. And don't forget, because we all do, don't forget to liberally sprinkle calls to action throughout your material. So if we could go to the next slide, you basically see the first slide that I showed you here. Your tech is complex, your message shouldn't be. And then the first sentence is, OSP is an open source and B2B tech marketing agency. This is not only our identity, this is designed for SEO. We want people to find us. Right? We align your strategy and content, et cetera, generate leads, just like we had before. And there's already a CTA, let's talk about your tech. And that'll take you to the contact form, and obviously, great. So here's the benefit. You're doing something complex. Boy, wouldn't it be great if it were easier to talk about. Right? The next thing that we have on our site is how we're going to get you to that state of simple, clear, valuable messaging. We like to say, look, we do great strategy workshops. It gets you to clarity. It gets you to really understanding what you're about. And us doing that together can help you frame it and organize it the way that we like to. We go into planning, which in our case means campaigns and content. We produce great content, and we do enablement. We are open source people. We share our templates. We are happy to have clients who need extra steps or want to do part of the work themselves. And you might write, we might polish. We might write, you might translate. We might write, you might do medical legal review, and so on. So we're very, very happy to teach and share how we work. So that's how we get you there. Now look, personas and challenges, and the challenges are there, right? I know we should be doing content, but I don't know how to find the time, right? I know that my pipeline is going to fall apart if I don't get some more leads, but I'm delivering the product, right? So these sorts of put out the questions, right, that your target audience has, the problems that they have, show that you understand them. And like we hint at the bottom at how we solve this, but this is about identifying that we understand you, our target audience in this case. And
you're in the right place, right? You need someone to understand, like, yep, I am seen here, and validate that they've taken the right call or that they're making the right decision just to have this conversation.
Then we go to a few testimonials. Hey, this thing really saves me time. This thing helps us understand ourselves better, and so on. Very, very helpful. I just want to say I'm super proud that doing this for 8 years now. Open source people from all sorts of projects and worlds are our customers, and we help them do better business, and it feels awesome. So how do I get contribution credits for that? Okay, next slide. Hey,
That's
presto.
a different hat.
Hey, presto, this is all the same stuff again. This is benefits that you would get, how we work, answering more specific questions on operational and inspirational levels, more about us ethically in case you want to, that you care that we're a human first company and that kind of stuff, and actual case studies, right? So that repeats that pattern at a deeper level. It's less pretty, but there's more stuff there. And then we come to a final CTA, super easy, little contact form. So that's our pitch deck. That's what I sell with. That and occasionally a couple other pages on the website. And anyone who needs a backup, they have a case study, we have references, all that kind of thing. So this is really important because if you've thought this through, you're already ready to present the benefits, challenges, and solutions that you deal with when you're pitching to actual people.
Right. So if you get the call or, make the meeting, whatever it is, your preparation in that moment isn't focused around you. It isn't focused around, like, do I have the slides I need, or do I understand how I'm going to talk about us? You get to put the focus on the person you're talking to. You get to be really present with that person. So as I'm preparing for a pitch, what I'm thinking about are the client, both at a high level, like, what kinds of problems are they encountering? What are those pain points? What might make their lives better? But I'm also digging deep into their industry, right? Making sure that I understand just the general landscape of what they're dealing with. And then specifically, Do your LinkedIn diving. Obviously, you know who you're talking to. How long have they been there? Who are they related to within the company? What kinds of things might they want? I mean, if you walk in and you're like, well, I don't really know who's sitting around the table, you're kind of at a disadvantage. You've missed an opportunity for you to really get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation you want to have. When I walk into these conversations, I'm never talking about Palantir. I'm 100% talking about them, which means I'm talking about us, right? How I help you is the only way that you're ever going to hear me talk about Palantir. I will never put up a slide. I will never emphasize any of those table stakes. It's always around what is the functional value to you? What is the ease of doing business value to you? And in that process, they get to know what it's like to work with me. And that's the consulting relationship we establish.
The next one's mine, right? Mm-hmm. Here, take this.
Okay.
I need my glasses for this one. So in this situation, you've met someone at the conference and had a couple beers together, and it sounded really promising. And now you want to dive in, right? So you've done your research. You know who they are. You know what their business is. You know what their vertical is. All the research that Tiffany was talking about. You hopefully know their job role and responsibilities within the company. If there are more than one people on the call, you should really know who you're dealing with. I do not have the intuition that some people have to figure out who's the real decision maker in the room and figure out who's happy and not. I'm not good at that. So I just use words and hope for the best. Listen, be nice, be friendly, be human. This is a casual world. Make sure you're speaking the right language with the people. And fundamentally think about, for me, because I'm not a preparer, I'm an improviser, right? I have my mental value map. I have the situation. I know about where we want to go in a very wide path. And how's it going? You told me at DrupalCon that, things are going really well, but that pipeline generation tool isn't delivering what you thought it might. Why is that? And what has it delivered? And, oh, that sounds great. And, so what's not working? And, how might we address that? And I'm sliding from larger questions to smaller questions as I'm going. I love to play the dumb guy in the room, especially in big meetings. And I'll say things like, I just heard you tell me ... In my own words, they talked about a challenge or a problem, and I'll reflect that back in my own words. And that's a really good way to connect. And I call it the dumb guy strategy because I feel like I'm just repeating what I hear. But that helps me, if I see people nod, I think that helps zero in on what you want to find. So we need to identify the challenges with them. I have a thing I'm doing in sales calls lately. I'm trying to challenge myself. How long can I go only asking questions and not telling them things? Right? Oh, so, and it's not, how does that make you feel? But really, really, if you're insightful enough, then you're seeing their challenges and asking what they might have tried before, what other solutions, what worked about that, what didn't, and so on, right?
Right. You're giving them the benefit of the doubt. You're like, you are smart people. We are smart people. We work with smart people. You've tried smart things. Let's talk about where it is. And you just need to make them feel very validated that, yep, you're having this problem and it's not unique to you. And the things you've tried that haven't worked out, yeah, it didn't work out for others either.
And from challenges, I do not jump to solutions. At the point when you really feel that you've dug out a bunch of challenges and the things that they're frustrated about, turn it over and say, what does the world look like when you've solved those? Where do you go when you have a great Drupal website, when you have, simultaneous editing, what does that look like? What does success look like? And at some point after if you come together as a relationship, small trick, you can start to figure out what your KPIs are going to be. At some point in that conversation, that's when you as a service provider in the last 30% of the call can start to say, okay, right, I see you have these challenges and I see that your company has the potential to do these things and you're being held back. I've seen some of this before. We helped another company do such and so, and it did that. And we know open source licensing very, very well. We can help you get out of that box that you've put yourself in, whatever the answer is, and we can start to say, and at that point, start to give them the feeling that you can help them, right? And then there's a whole art to moving on to next steps and what the appropriate cutoff is. But since we book hour-long meetings, like, the last 5 or 10 minutes are there for figuring out how to go forward. And one of my mentors tells me, never leave the next steps with the prospect, always own the next action, which is a mistake I make a lot, right? So you see them, you've got them excited about their great future. You say you could help them, leave them wanting more, get in touch with them again, book the next meeting, make a proposal, whatever it is. Details are then up to you.
So I think, Jam's kind of, here, take this, go ahead. Covered a lot of the different pieces in structuring the pitch, right? You are reflecting what they said. Often, Jim uses the approach of his homepage as the pitch. What I like to do is, especially if I'm just doing it as a call, I will actually have a deck that I'm editing while they're talking. Here's this piece that I talked about, and let's fill this in. We're just going to fill in the structure together so that I have an idea what I'm going to put in there. I have an idea what I'm going to hear, but I don't put it in there until they've said it. And then they get to see it right there. And so then that becomes a leave behind for them. And I don't have to follow up.
Do you do that on screen or behind
on
the
screen.
scenes? Oh.
I do it on screen.
The freakiest trick would be if you do that behind the scenes and then give them the deck that exactly reflects the meeting.
Right.
That would be magic.
What I do is I actually, because our process is one of co-creation, and so I invite them into that right away. So again, the pitch is about me, but I never talk about me. I let the client experience, or the potential client experience, what it's like to work with us, and so that co-creation is an intentional part of how we invite them into that kind of collaborative process.
What if you had a tool where you could do that simultaneously online?
Well, yeah. Right now we use Google, but you never know. So, I think I don't have too much more to add beyond what Jam has said. All the pieces in his silent pitch, all the social proof, the testimonials, those kinds of things, they are important. But most important in that piece is for them to start to envision their own future and envision that future with you. So it's less about the outputs. Again, these pitches that we do, they're not really about, this is the solution, this is like the technical solution you're going to get. It's about the outcome of having worked together and solved this problem. So again, a lot of people tend to go down to those table stakes, which is, we have a technical solution and this is what it's going to look like and these are the modules and whatever else it is. It's never about that. That's not how they're going to make that decision. At least not in your, 5, 6, 7-figure deals. They're not deciding it on that point.
And in the smaller deals, in the SME space that we generally operate in, every sale is a trust sale, right? Like, you have to believe that we're going to help you. Your clients have to believe that the website that you can deliver them is going to help them, right?
Yep, absolutely. They have to believe you can do it, right?
Yep.
So I think at this point we want to open it up for kind of Q&A and to talk about, what your experiences are and, what things you were wondering about, what things have worked for you, any kind of questions there.
Did anybody type anything into it?
Nope.
Wow.
Also, because there was a last-minute laptop switcheroo, there's the 5-user limit is still on.
Yep. But there's I don't see anybody in there.
All right.
The fast-forward voice is too hard.
I know. Sorry, Palantir. Yeah.
Okay, so can you?
We could just pass the mic around, like old school. Like we actually have questions. People have answers.
Yeah, hi guys. So I think that was really good. I loved it. Really enjoyed it. I'm also in sales and commercial, so it resonates with me. So I guess I have a comment first, and then a question. So I guess the comment is, and I guess this is from my own personal experience. I think the framework that you've mapped out is really solid, and it's something that I follow pretty much the same. I think the sort of comment is something that's worked for me in the agency really successfully more recently is putting that through the lens of a story. So trying to make the client or the customer the hero of that story and how you're a guide to sort of help them get to where they need to go rather than making you and the agency the hero, which can often be the case. I think the sort of question that I had was on the value map framework. I found that really interesting. is this something you just put together from a commercial point of view, or I guess I'm thinking about buying from the business as well and getting maybe sort of tech or PM or ops, or everyone's a salesperson, right? So that value map framework, is this something that you sort of put together and roll out, or do you look for input from the wider business?
This is a multi-stakeholder process, or it's meaningless. One beautiful side effect is that we have brought in some projects, design, product ownership, dev, business, and, and in the best cases, client advocates, right? And for one product, there are 3.5 to 7 versions of what it is and what it does and what value it delivers. And once we've asked all those people all those things and brought it together and then cut them down, eliminated duplicates, negotiated what's important and whatever, that filled out picture gives a team an incredible sense of unity and direction. Like we're working on the same thing and we're selling the same thing, which is a great feeling, right? And functionally really, really valuable.
Before I pass the mic on to the next question, I want to hat tip to the hero's journey storytelling. I love that. The customers on the journey, they're the hero. And you've always got to be Gandalf, who gives them the sword that they need to slay the dragon. Yeah. And the value cases that Jam and Tiffany have been presenting that are part of the value map, where it's a challenge, a benefit, and a solution, are an encapsulation of the hero's journey. What's the challenge that motivates the hero to take the journey? What's the benefit that they're seeking at the end of the journey? And what's the solution, the sword from Gandalf or whatever, the invisibility cloak that they need along the way to get that? So I always think about the value cases, which are in the value map, as part of the hero's journey.
And also what it does, which is really fun, I find, is that it also helps the hero find out that actually he or she can actually be a hero, because you can find benefits in your product that you didn't know you had because you're seeing it from a different perspective, which is really powerful.
More questions? That was really fun. Oh, there's one online, which is, and I'm gonna be mean, and I'm gonna let Tiffany roll with this. When do you talk about budget in this process?
Well, so again, because of the kind of tenders that we work with, the folks who are making the technical decision, or actually the solution decision, are not allowed to know the budget. There's usually 2 separate people. So it depends on what you're dealing with. But and what we know is that when we're invited to actually have the conversation, so in the tenders that we work with, you'll get an RFP. You can ask questions in writing only. Everybody gets those questions back, and then you submit your proposal. And usually there's 2 parts of it. There's the cost portion, and then the technical portion of it. So in order to get invited to the dance or the pitch that we go to, they've already assumed that the budget is fine, right? We don't actually get in. So that's why for me, it's table stakes. And if you have pricing that you're comfortable with, they should have already kind of seen that before you get into the conversation. And it's okay if it feels a little aspirational to them, and you can address that. For any of those table stakes items, I always have slides in my pitch deck that are prepared to talk about it, but I'm never going to use their time for it unless they go there.
Okay. In our case, where we're trying to convince someone to they're trying to convince us to help them, or we're trying to convince them that it's a good fit. The money question needs to come up in the first call. If you leave it longer than that, it's not going to come together. Yeah. And we have some nice euphemisms for it. Our retainers run at the rate of an FTE, a full-time equivalent, a head count. That's a very, very broad range. And essentially our formula is velocity-based. We'll get things done at quite a wide range of budgets, but more and faster. So it depends on urgency. And we talk about, retainers and surges or higher or whatever. But in the end, and especially when we're in US European terms, our retainers are a head count or 2. And thank you for confirming that, but we feel that the package then is worth it. And talking about justifying and meeting people's needs and all of that, it sort of comes next?
It depends on who you're talking to, right? In your case, it's like, oh, if they are a department of one, it's like, wouldn't you actually like to have muscle behind you, right? Are you tired? Can you focus on the thing that only you can do? And then you get this team behind you. If you're someone like us and you were like trying to hire, or the founders keep doing all these things in their, in the snatched moments between the things that we have to do, that only we can do, then you basically say, look, we have you covered. It's like getting an entire department. So depending on who you're talking to, your pitch does change. But I think there's, folks are typing in what hasn't worked, and it is very frustrating. We all like to think that we're the king of our domain, especially when we're talking to someone new and forming a relationship. So one of the challenges that's being typed in here is around someone lies that they're the decision maker. And I think my experience on this one is I just assume that everyone assumes that they're the decision maker, but I ask questions around the ecosystem of who else might need to be involved. And then you get a spidey sense for what that looks like. This is where LinkedIn mapping is really helpful, because titles are meaningless and you can't tell. You might have someone with a director title and they have no budget authority over $25,000, so it's really not going to be that kind of conversation. You're going to want to essentially ask enough questions around who else is impacted in this by the organization, and can we get them to our next call, or what does that look like, especially if you're having this sort of back and forth, there's the perennial struggle between IT and marketing. Who owns this? I assume that neither does. I assume that the truth is in between the two of them, and make sure when we're talking about the value map case that we're making, that I'm speaking to both sides of that audience, because even if I don't get them in the room with me, the deck or the leave behind or the proposal needs to speak to anybody I didn't get to talk to. And I think because we have the experience of rarely getting to talk to people before we are a finalist, one of the last 2 or maybe 3, I'm very good at anticipating based on what I saw in the RFP, based on what I see online, based on what I know from our earned experience, of being able to plant little seeds around those messages for the questions that weren't asked that I think should be.
You have to go. I'm sorry. There's a thank you slide, but thank you very much for coming, and thank you for the great questions.
Thank you all.